Hi, Saberto. Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear me well?
Hello.
Hello, everyone. So, Surrender, I'm making you a host now. So you will be able to co-host people into the parallel session. Okay.
So far I see David, I see Ipsita, and I see Frank. So two are missing, is that right?
We also have Marcela Venegas. She's presenting in the case of Bettina Cardoso from Argentina. And we also have David Wuta. We have the 5 presenters there.
So Renee is not presenting?
Renee must be here very soon, since this is 10:40. By now, you may assign the presenters as co-host, please.
Okay, sorry. Bettina, is she listed as something else on the screen?
Sorry, Surrender, I can hear you well.
We have a speaker called Bettina, right?
Yeah, but Bettina is not presenting. Instead, is Marcela Vanegas.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't understand, how in any spelling.
She told me that little change.
So I don't want to randomly assign people to be speakers when they have no plan to speak.
Yeah, I think the only person who's still not here is Rene. So let me check in my email in any case.
Okay, while Rene checks in, just a couple of quick announcements to everyone. We have plenty of time, so don't try to rush yourselves. You have about 10 minutes. Take your time, don't run through it. This is more informal in the sense that there is no assigned discussant. So give the audience a chance to actually listen to what you're saying.
ठीक है, देखें आपको ज़्यादा कड़वा तो नहीं लग रहा?
Someone spoke. Who's that? Okay. And so make sure you speak slowly. We have about 5 minutes for discussion. Everybody else who's in the session, please think of questions. There are no assigned discussants again for these speakers. The order that we'll go in is David. Instead of Bettina, we have Marcela. Renee is still not here.
Yeah, but I think Alejandra Schöften is presenting for Renee. Am I right, Alejandra? Hello, by the way.
Hello, yes, I'm presenting for Renee.
Great, yeah, there we go.
Okay. All right, and then we have Ipsita, and finally we have Frank. Okay. If it's a small enough group, so if the speakers want to put their videos on, I think it's not so big that you can't hear the others or see the others. With that, can all speakers firstly confirm that they are listed as co-hosts? Because otherwise you won't be able to share your screen. Yes?
Yes, I confirm.
Great.
Yes.
Yes, I can also confirm I've been made a co-host.
Fantastic.
Yes.
David?
I just can see that I can share my screen.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this work. Of course, it is a work in progress. Yeah, the title of my talk is on the household Oh, sorry. Why this thing is appearing? Household revealed and the stated 3 species preference for firewood in the south of Chile and implications for native forest. So that outline of my presentation consists of motivation, data, and the variables, preliminary results, and the key messages, and a proposed empirical approach. So wood accounts for 9% of global primary energy consumption in low and middle income countries specifically. Roughly 50% of global forest extraction comes from, goes to wood consumption, as FAO 2019 describes. Chile is a middle income country where firewood is commercially supplied. And unlike other developing countries, firewood is used primarily for residential heating, while in other countries like in sub-Saharan Africa, it goes to cooking purpose. It is a second most important energy source, comprising about 25% of national primary energy consumption. It mostly comes from illegal logging in the area where this study was conducted. And this can cause adverse effect on sustainability of forests. It may cause ecological disruptions and forest degradation. Sorry. So there are studies on the firewood consumption behavior of householders. Many studies have been conducted over the last 2 or 3 decades. And most of these studies have focused on the determinants of firewood consumption and energy substitution between different biomass energy sources and factors affecting this, estimating elasticity, price elasticity, and so on, estimating shadow price, how householders responded to forest degradation, food scarcity, and so on. The second group of studies looked at 3 species selection for firewood. And yet another group of studies have looked at how wood quality measured in terms of full value index affect household preference for 3 species. But these studies have arrived at mixed evidences. However, there are few in-depth quantitative studies on household preferences and the choice of 3 species used for firewood, comparing revealed and stated preferences. So our study looks at the revealed as well as stated preferences and how this match or mismatch and what factors affect household species choices. So the main goal of the study is to analyze revealed versus stated 3 species preferences for firewood and the factors influencing household choice behavior. Sorry. So the data used for this study comes from cross-sectional survey. Cross-sectional survey collected from Los Lagos region in the southern part of Chile, which was collected during October to December 2020. The households were selected from 5 stratas. It includes major cities, Paurito, Monte, and Osorino. These are major cities in the region. And strata 3 are medium cities. The strata 4 are small cities, and the strata 5 is rural households. So it consists almost all forms of rural-urban setting, including major and the medium and the small and rural firewood consumers. Out of the 621 households that were in the sample, about 89.4 or 555 households reported that they use firewood. And these are households that we consider for this study. The rest 66 households didn't consume firewood at all. Okay. So our data consists of different variables that we control in the model that we categorize as household perception on species-specific attributes, wood quality, cost, accessibility of the species, household socio-economic factors, including family size, expenditure group, income, occupation group, residential characteristics. And the third type of variables are demographic factors, including here's age, gender, and education level. And we would also like to see at how household perception on deforestation affects their species choice, and household perception about if fuelwood consumption causes deforestation or not. And lastly, socioeconomic variables. Still, we are working on this one, how socio-ecological variables affect their species choice. We will see at spatial heterogeneities, and still looking for other variables. So our result shows that about 1/3 of the household didn't consume the 3 species they prefer, and 4% didn't state their preference at all, while 61% consumed the species that they prefer. So that means there is a large number of households. There are a large number of households who didn't get what they prefer. And what is unknown is what causes this, what is the factors that are dictating this. So our data show.
have about 2 minutes. Just
okay. So the data. Okay, the data shows that households consumed 25 different types of 3 species. The major ones are native species, ulmo, tepu, and luma, and abundant 3 species, which is rosa and eucalyptus tree. And when we see the household stated preference rank, these native species, ulmo, lemo, and tepu consists the first and the second rank, while eucalyptus, which is exotic species, consists of the 3rd rank. So when we compare revealed and stated preference, about 34% of the households consumed their first preferred species, 15% consumed their second preferred species, and 12% consumed their 3rd stated preference, and the rest didn't get their preferred species. So the key message is that nearly 1/3 of the households consumed species that they didn't prefer. Many households used high-value native species, which is a cause for significant pressure on natural forest ecosystem. And on the other hand, many households used exclusively eucalyptus, and this creates incentive for plantation of these exotic species. So therefore, our study will contribute to improved regulation of forest by promoting more sustainable consumption decision, better regulate local forest market, and strengthen protection of natural forest and their biodiversity. The proposed empirical model that we are going to apply is either of these or combination of these different modeling approaches. Binary logit model or probit model for consumption of preferred, not preferred species. Generalized order probit model to see at revealed species choice from ranked stated preference, or multinomial logit or probit model for revealed species choices. So thank you very much. So this is a graph of the region, the area, and this is a major city. Okay.
Thank you, David. That was on time. That's a good example for the others to follow. Everybody's looking at this beautiful picture and wishing that we were actually meeting in Puerto Montt and not on Zoom. But with that, let me see. There's a couple of comments that have appeared, and I will read that out while the others take a minute to think about some other questions. So Alejandra, who will be speaking later, is offering some data sources. She asks if you can read the chat yourself, David. If you are looking for municipal level information, there is a data set called the National System of Municipal Information. It's in Spanish, but I guess Rene is one of your co-authors, so he can help you translate that.
Okay.
The other question is also from her. I think it's saying, where did you get the data? Was it fieldwork? Did you get this information? Where did you get this information about household materials? If you can answer that, then I have another couple of questions that I'll get to in a second. Yeah.
Okay, this is cross-sectional survey that was collected in 2020, as I've stated. It was collected for this purpose, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask a couple of questions while we see if someone else comes up with some other things to ask. I just note that I won't be asking questions of every speaker, so that's not the expectation here. So one is a very big picture question, and you have a good answer perhaps, and then the second is maybe you don't know yet. So the first one is, why does it make a difference when you say that the main contribution of this paper is not that people have not studied preferences for firewood, but preferences for the kind of species? Is this, yeah, so if you can speak to that a little bit. Is it for, yeah, I won't try to guess. If you can tell me why this is important to know what species people care about.
Yeah, there are different types of species, and the firewood consumption affects forest biodiversity, and deforestation of extinction of certain species will affect the forest ecosystem. So specifically the high value native species, if they are mostly preferred and people consume more of those species, then the forest ecosystem is going to be affected. So we try to see what factors drive the preference for those different types of species and what need to be done to address the full wood demand in the process.
Yeah, I think you might want to consider reframing how you present this as you go forward. You could put it exactly in that very last sentence that you said, that there is some risk of high valued ecosystem, species that are important for ecosystem integrity, that there is excessive demand for that. So this study is to try to see if this is true, right? Because we don't want people to rely on these biodiverse, ecologically valuable species. And and even change the title of the paper so that people's attention is right there on that question. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other question, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. So Marcella, you should get ready in a second. So I think you said that you were going to compare revealed and stated preferences. Have you not? I don't think you presented that yet. Is that still the plan?
The revealed and the stated preference?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. The last graph shows that.
Okay, okay.
Here we see households. The stated preference is rank first, second, and the third, which is presented here. So we just categorized 25 different species into some 12 different species.
No, I understand that this is stated, but what is revealed then? What are they actually doing? Is there a difference between what they're actually doing and what they're saying?
Exactly. The actual is what they actually use.
I see. I think you might want to think about presenting them overlapping so we can see that this is what they're saying and this is what they're doing, right? So like some sort of a...
Exactly. Here is the actual preference of households. And here is a stated preference. And here is overlapping of the two. Basically,
okay, now I get that this information is there in your presentation. It's just wasn't clear whether there was overlap or lack of overlap or
yeah. We are looking at overlap as well as lack of overlap. These households are there is an overlapping here for these households. They didn't get what they didn't use what they actually stated in their preference. This part of households got their actual preference in their statement. However, on different ranks. So, for example, if households use more than 2 species, they might get from their first stated preference or their second stated preference. If that is the case, then we group them as a first stated preference. So yeah, that is this rank will help us to use generalized ordered Probit or logit model.
Okay, thank you. If you can stop sharing your slides, then Marcella can. And thank you for that, Marcella. I think there's one more question from Sahan in the chat. I will let you deal with that by replying, typing in your answer. We will move on to the third presentation.
Thank you.
And that's not Renee, but Alejandra, I think, is presenting. So all yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. So good morning. I will present the study When Energy Transition Lacks Economic Growth, Persistence of Fuel Wood Consumption in the South of Chile. This work was carried out by a group of researchers from the Forestry Institute in Chile, the Chilean Ministry of Energy, and Professor Hisham Sarrifi from University of British Columbia. This is a work that is still in progress and that started in 2019 with the aim to assess the changes in the energy matrix and energy transition processes in urban areas. Our motivation was to address the serious problem of air pollution that affects all the south central region of the country, affecting the health of half of the Chilean population, reaching to 10 million people. The air pollution in this region of the country is a consequence of the excessive use of firewood for heating. Firewood is intensively used mostly in heating devices due to the cold climate of this region. And sometimes it is also used for cooking, but this use is mainly for heating. The method included the analysis of surveys applied in 1996 in the city of Puerto Montt and the application of surveys in 2019 in a joint work with the Ministry of Energy. Besides secondary data from National Socioeconomic Census and other sources was used for the analysis, so we could gather that data from household characteristics, technical aspects of the dwellings, and also energy consumption patterns. These surveys were applied in the city of Puerto Montt, that is one of the biggest cities of the south central region of the country. And here we have the 150 sampling points where we address all this topic that I mentioned regarding household preferences, dwelling technical aspects such as insulation and energy patterns. If we look at the evolution of income in Chile for the last 20 years, that is represented in the figure at the left, we can see that the per capita income for more than tripled from $8,000 in 1996 to $26,000 in 2019. This is relatively high compared to other developing countries, and in fact, the 2019 income in Chile is similar to the 2004 income in Spain. Despite this increase in income, the inequality has not decreased at the same rate, and in the figure at the right, we can see that although the Gini coefficient has decreased approaching that of the United States, it is still higher than countries like Spain. Although previous studies developed by Forestry Institute show that the number of the dwellings in the city of Puerto Montt have significantly increased, as you can see in this figure above, the share of households that use firewood slightly decreased, as it can be seen in the figure below. In 1996, 85% of households use firewood, while in 2019, this figure was reduced to 80%. But despite this reduction, firewood consumption in the city has stabilized at around 400,000 solid cubic meters per year. The stabilization of fuelwood consumption in Puerto Montt, despite urban expansion and the high proportion of households that use firewood, is a consequence of the reduction in firewood consumption per dwelling. This consumption has decreased at an average rate of 0.22 solid cubic meters per household per year between 1996 and 2019. And several changes are driving this reduction. First, demographic changes and a less intense use of dwellings, for example, smaller families and more women that are working outside the house. Higher efficiency of modern wood stoves that rise from 35 to 45% in 1996 to 60-65% in 2019. More options of fuels are available, which produces fuel stacking. Currently, firewood is mainly used for heating, while in 1996 its use for cooking was relevant. And thermal regulations have been implemented since 2007, which implies an improvement in energy efficiency standards for new dwellings and a reduction in energy demand for heating. It is to note that similar trends were observed in other cities like Valdivia, that is located 200 kilometers south of Puerto Montt, and that between 1991 and 2014 showed a decrease in firewood consumption of 0.21 solid cubic meters per household per year. This shows an energy transition process that is taking place in all the southern region of the country. If we look at the energy consumption patterns, we can see fuel stacking process taking place in Puerto Montt. While in 1996, LPG was used for hot water and cooking, firewood for heating and cooking, kerosene for heating and lighting, and electricity for lighting and appliances. In 2019, different trends can be seen. The increase in income and reduction in the Gini coefficient has made available a set of different energy options for different uses. It is to note that wood pellets have had an exponential increase, with nearly 12% of households using this fuel. This is a consequence of the contamination plans that have been implemented in all large cities of the southern region of the country. And these instruments include programs that replace firewood heating devices for wood pellet heating devices. The survey that was applied included a specific question regarding willingness to change from firewood to other energy sources at similar prices. Results show that 72% of decision makers are willing to replace fuelwood by other energy source, and 28% are not willing to replace fuelwood because of cultural attachment. This last group are mainly elder who prefer to see the fire and prefer the type of heat it produces. Results show a clear preference for wood pellets, and in a second place, solar energy. On a third place are other options as wind energy. This preference for wood pellets is consequence of the implementation of the decontamination plans that introduced this new energy option to the consumers in the last years. Surveys that have been applied in other cities of the region show that in smaller cities, the percentage of users that are not willing to change firewood for other fuels increases. And in rural areas, figures are inverse, with only around 1/3 of households willing to change to other fuel options at similar prices. If we look at an average energy consumption per fuel at the household level, we can see a very high energy demand for heating compared to other energy uses. This makes it difficult to replace firewood for other energy sources, even for high-income households. This energy demand for heating is a consequence of low thermal standards, which imply that dwellings do not have an adequate insulation for the climate of the region. And this is a key aspect that explains why firewood is so important in the energy matrix of Puerto Montt and of the other cities in this area of the country. So our main conclusions so far in this preliminary analysis are that there are several factors driving energy transition in Puerto Montt. Socioeconomic aspects are one of them, but also cultural, demographic, and institutional factors are influencing this process. A significant increase in family income and a slightly better income distribution have not been enough to displace fuelwood as the main energy source of Puerto Montt after 20 years. The decontamination plans have pushed the eruption of wood pellet as a replacement of firewood for heating by subsidizing wood pellet stoves. This policy is also influencing people's heating preferences. About 1/3 of decision makers declare they will never replace firewood by other fuels because of cultural reasons. And finally, the improvement of building insulation standards are key to reduce energy demand for heating. Thus, it is necessary to regulate new constructions and retrofit existing ones. This would enable the energy transition of the 2/3 of households that are willing to change to other fuels at similar prices. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. Let's see. I haven't seen any questions in the chat yet. Anyone have some thoughts before I drum up my usual set of random questions? So while others are thinking, giving them a few minutes, Alejandra, let me ask one clarifying question and then perhaps a bigger question. So the clarifying question is literally, what are the units of analysis in the work that you showed? Is it the municipalities and then you're looking at them over time in Puerto Montt? Is it households, or you know, what I couldn't tell when you were drawing the income profiles and their energy use, what the basic unit of analysis was. So if you answer that question, then I'll ask the bigger question. Yeah.
So for both surveys, the 1996 and the 2019, we had an analysis at a commune level for the whole city of Puerto Montt, and for it is an urban area and one of the biggest urban areas in the South Central region. So our results show how this energy transition process is going on in urban areas that is very different from rural areas and in big cities. But we have surveys for all the urban area of Puerto Montt. Puerto Montt and Alerce, it's a big conurbation of cities. And this is our unit of analysis. And we have 150 surveys for the household level.
And just quick follow-up to that, and then I'll get to Mira's question, which is along the lines I was thinking anyway, which is, so how many communes in Puerto Montt? So what is your sample size?
No, it's only one commune, Puerto Montt Alerces, that has grown a lot in the last years, and we had 150 surveys in this commune.
Yeah. So maybe it's a little bit tricky to say things about the income profile, right? Because if you don't have a good representation of the entire place, then you might be not characterizing that. So Mira asks if I think the rest of us have heard some version of this problem in previous talks in Chile and from Chile, right? I think actually Mira was there in Chile, right? So if this is a cultural problem, do you think information campaigns could help? I know that you had a project on this, Alejandra, so maybe this is an easy one for you to answer. Yeah.
Yes, in the big cities, we find that 78% of the population is willing to change to other fuels, and we have seen how the contamination plans have increased the proportion of people that are willing to change and that actually change to wood pellets, and not only because they receive the subsidy, because they see other people using wood pellets and they see this as an option. But I think the most important driver now is the price of the fuel, because firewood is much cheaper than other fuels, and wood pellets is what comes second after firewood in price. So our biggest driver now is the price because of the high demand, the high energy demand for heating. So we cannot think of a transition process, even though we have the information and we have other options, until we don't reduce first the demand in order to have access to the amount of energy needed to heat a house in this climate. But I think information has had a very important role in the context of the decontamination plans regarding the efficiency in the use of the house, in the use of the heating devices, and in people getting to know other options of fuels like wood pellets that were not an option 10 years ago or 5 years ago in Chile.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Apparently, the Ministry of Energy is working on ensuring an even supply of pellets for this year, because last year there was this supply problem because of the pandemic. But apparently they're not working on the price issue. The producers last year decided not to increase their prices, but we know there was kind of a black market around pellet. I don't know if it was significant or not, but I'm afraid this might happen again. Some people or some small shops increasing pellet prices. So do you have any information about you just talk about prices, and that's my main concern, and I don't know if there's any evidence of what will happen if the prices increase.
Mm-hmm. No, we don't have information, and I think the Ministry of Energy doesn't have either about this like black market and the prices that rise with these little people that are selling in non-formal commerce, but we saw a lot of problems with the quality of the pellet, because we do not have a regulation of the quality. And last year, as we have this problem with the supply, that we had a lot of demand because people were at their houses during the pandemic, so they use a lot of heating, a lot of more than other years, and there was a problem with a specific company. So we had this problem with the stock in all the southern region of the country. More than the prices, I think the problem was with the quality, because there was a lot of pellets that was sold in the market with waste, plastic and other residues from different types that were toxic and that were also producing problems with the equipment. And I think that we need to move forward with the use of pellet is to have a stable supply first. As you say, people now are getting back to firewood after what happened last year. Many people are getting back because they don't think that they will be sure to have a supply next year of pellets, and problems with the quality that bring them problem with the equipment, that they cannot operate correctly. So I think that is what we have seen last year, more than prices, even though we don't have the evidence, because the data we are getting now is we have not analyzed it yet. But last winter and this winter, we are also doing surveys to get data about pellet use specifically, and prices and quality and availability.
You have another comment in there from Mira. I will let you address that as we transition over. One observation here is, of course, someone has to talk about taxes. Seems like here is a classic case of this is the biggest puzzle, right? Chile is rich enough to afford the transition, and it's something is holding it back. And you might wonder if taxing this polluting activity would make a difference, but probably the distributional implications are huge, that the people using wood to heat are typically poor, and so it's you need a massive subsidy to move that. And so your own work on housing redesign and building codes and things like that, maybe that's also the issue to push. So with that, thank you again, Alejandra. I will suggest that I will ask Ipsita to share her slide.